All right, class. First off, as always, good morning or good day. Um, Today we're going to be talking about the immigration uh, aspect of the Industrial Revolution. Now, here's the thing. This section is actually quite long, but the thing is I broke it down into two parts because of what was happening this weekend at school. We had the testing, so that made things a little difficult because some people were not in class. So this particular section is actually a lot shorter. The next video will be a lot longer to make up for it. So be prepared for that part. Okay, so before we begin, make sure you have the packet ready. And if you don't have the packet, lined sheet of paper is fine, just as long as you put on the side, warm up, notes. When I ask you the question, you put down, answer on the side. That way I can see where each section is. Okay, so without further ado, let us begin. Okay, so here is your warm up. First off, you're supposed to analyze the picture. Okay, so look at it, go through it, see everything around it. Um, what does each thing mean? Um, and one of the most common question I got is the guy sleeping? No, he is not sleeping. If anything, he's kind of like bored or depressed or, in a sense, maybe even upset. Okay, but he is not sleeping. Okay, so with that being said, analyze the picture. What do you see? And then the second part of the question is, what do you think this artist is trying to say? What is the political cartoon trying to point out? Okay, so knowing what you know about what's in the picture and everything like that, answer, what do you think this artist is trying to say? Okay, so if you need time to pause the video, pause the video. But once you finish, go ahead and get ready for the notes. All right, so here's the thing. Today we're going to be talking about the European immigrants coming over. Okay, thing is, a lot of Europeans came to this country for various reasons. One of the biggest ones is for jobs, because you have to remember at this time, the Industrial Revolution, it's creating a boom in the economy. There are more factories being built. There's railways to be done. So those jobs, they need people, okay? And a lot of those jobs are really hard, really tough. So there's a lot of people in this country who do not want those jobs unless it's like a last resort. Um, so what ends up happening is a lot of immigrants hear about this. Hey, there's jobs. They hear the stories about America, land of opportunity. You can pick gold from the streets, type of thing. So they come in bunches. Again, there are a lot of different reasons, and we're going to go over several of them. So, okay, the next one is to escape military service, because in a lot of other countries, what they would do is they would go into towns and basically look for young men who were about the same, right age, quote unquote, um, and basically were taking them, to serve in the military. Now the thing is, it's not like how it is nowadays, where you sign a contract, you sign it's for so much time, whatever it may be. Then it was like they can keep you for as long as they wanted. You know, sometimes it was up to 5, 10 years. Uh, so to escape that, a lot of young men came to avoid military service. Um, Now, another big reason why people came was for religious persecution. All right. One of the biggest ones were the Jewish people from Poland and Russia. They were being ostracized. They were being basically persecuted for being Jewish. So they had no other choice because other people didn't want them. Other countries, they weren't welcomed. So they saw America as a new hope in a sense. All right. Another one is famine. You know, food appreciate it just declined. Crops were destroyed. You know, so That's why a lot of people came to this country the from the European side. And also, too, the United States had a really relaxed regulation when it came to the immigration process. Okay. Um, Now, back in the day, it was a lot harder for people to basically come to the United States. But this time around, the European governments made it easy. You know, they could, in a sense, take their savings. They could sell their stuff and go. Whereas back in the day, they had to basically, in a sense, leave their stuff behind. You know, some of the old laws were removed. One of the biggest ones was they would keep their skilled people in their country. So let's say in France, there's an engineer who makes weapons, right? Creates new weapons. Uh, maybe he's a blacksmith too. They double a jewel, both things. You know, so that country would not let him go because that's the best. Why would they let somebody go from France to, let's say, England, whereas England might take him and he might help them out, and they might go against them. So they wanted their best people here in their country. But now it got to the point they're like, you know what, just go. You want to go, go. You know. Now back in the day with like Columbus and the 13 colonies and stuff like that, the ships took a while to get to the New World. Now, thanks to the advancement in technology and the now they know how to navigate through the Atlantic. Uh, it took about 2 weeks. Now, here's a problem. A lot of the people coming from Europe, they could not afford a first, second, or third class ticket. They basically had to go to steerage, which is at the bottom of the boat. Um, and just imagine being in basically the bottom of the boat and there's people coughing, you know, just everywhere. Um, the sanitation wasn't that great. And the thing is, if you've never been on a boat rocks from one side to the other to the other. It's just constant motion. Um, it's not still. It's not still whatsoever. So a lot of people got sick, motion sickness, things like that. So they might throw up on the ground, things like that. And just imagine the vomit just going from side to side to side, people stepping on it. If you look at the picture to your right, there's even a little girl who's fallen on the floor. So you could just imagine if she slipped and fell in somebody's vomit. It wouldn't be a pretty sight. Now, when the immigrants from Europe came into the United States, they went through Ellis Island. Now, Ellis Island, it took, sometimes it took less than, about a day. Some people took a little bit longer. Um, and some people it would take even longer than that because of several reasons. One, the person looked sick, so they had to quarantine them. And if they got better, hey, yeah, come on in. But if they were really sick, looked like they're about to die, they would basically, go back to your country. Same thing with if someone looked like they might be trouble. If someone looked like they might be crazy, they would again quarantine them, hold them, watch them, and let's say this person is crazy or they start getting mad and start trying to fight people doing that, and yeah, they would send them away. Um, but if everything went well, they let them in the country. So a lot of immigrants, they migrated to large towns: New York, Chicago, Milwaukee, Detroit. And the thing is, instead of kind of forming, you know, just there's all these immigrants coming together in one place, they actually started forming little communities, cultural communities. There'd be like Little Italy. There'd be little Chinatown. There'd be, well, in New York, they have the Lower East Side, which is, um, I guess, Jewish community. So the thing is, they kind of coagulated in a sense. We're going to take this section, this group is going to take this section, this group is going to take this section, this group is going to take this section. So if you look on the map there, you can see Chinatown, Little Italy. Down south is the Lower East Side. You got West Village, things like that. So when these immigrants were coming together, they, in a sense, yeah, they kind of came together, but then they went into their own little groups. You see what I mean? So in these communities, they felt more comfortable to speak in their own native tongue. The Chinese would speak Chinese, the Italians would speak Italian. If it was, let's say, a little Puerto Rican town, they might speak, Spanish. Wherever ethnic group they were from, they were more relaxed and they could speak their native tongue. Now, the other thing they would do is recreate their churches. The Italians, mostly Catholic, so they would start building theirs. The Jewish would build up their synagogue. The Muslims would create their mosques and things like that. So that's what they started to do. They started to feel like this is our home, this is our area, so we're going to make it so that it's for us. Okay. The other thing they did was create clubs. Now, I'm not talking about like dance clubs or things like that, but like social groups, like they had back in their old countries, or even created new ones. Hey, create a social group. Let's say Little Italy, they had maybe they might have a club that said, we're going to welcome these new immigrants coming in because they're from our area. We're going to help them out, get a job, help them a place to stay, things like that, because they were there at one point too. If not then their ancestors. And some even had their own newspapers, talking about what's happening in their old country, what's happening in their new community, things like that. So a lot of these immigrants, again, formed into cultural communities. All right, so now that was the end of the notes for today. Like I said at the beginning, it was a very, very short lesson. All right. Also in that class, I gave everybody their grades up to this point and their folder, which had all their work. So I took some time out of class for that too. Now, excuse me, here is your final question. Why do you think that cultural communities were created? What are some pros and cons to living in communities like that? So there's your writing prompt. I think that cultural communities were created because la 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 la, whatever you think. Some of the pros of living in those communities are, so what are some good things about living in a community like that? So let's say you're Italian. What would be a good reason for living in Little Italy? What are some of the cons of living in those communities? So what are some bad reasons? Like if you were Italian again, if you were living in Little Italy, what are some bad things that might happen if you were living in Little Italy? What are some possible reasons? Okay, so that's it for the notes. Hopefully you learned something new today. The next video, I am warning you guys, it is longer because of how short this lesson was. Okay, so be prepared for that. All right, so again, once you're finished, put your name on your paper, staple it if you need staples. I have a stapler next to the basket which you need to turn your work in, and that's it. Okay, so have a good day, guys.